everybody, and welcome back to the Sideline Eye podcast. You're very welcome to our review show, and we're looking back at Armagh's 1-point defeat to All Ireland champions Kerry in Tralee on Saturday night. I'm delighted to be once again joined by former Kerry forward Sean O'Sullivan, and we're going to go through the ins and outs of Armagh's 1-point defeat. Sean, I suppose, how did you find the game? I know there was a bit of commentary maybe that it was overly defensive and wasn't a great game to watch. I enjoyed it being at the game, but then maybe that's when you're in the thick of it and it's so close. You don't really, from the outside, you can maybe be more critical of it. But how did you find the game? What did you make of it?
Yeah, look, Sean, I suppose we spoke in the lead up to the game in last week on your podcast about how we both felt it was going to be an open game. I got my prediction right in terms of I thought Kerry would win in a tight affair. I said 1 or 2 points, and I was proven right there. But I think we both agreed that we probably felt it would be much more open, which it wasn't. It wasn't at all. It was the complete opposite. I've watched it back now again since, and God, it was cagey. It was very cagey. And people are, with no disrespect, maybe the Kerry people are kind of blaming Armagh for that. But, Kerry were just as defensive when Armagh were coming at them, and maybe at times Kerry were trying to play a more expansive game than Armagh. But both teams set up defensively and trying to protect their D. And, there was very little goal chances in the game, I suppose. And, that proves that both defences were well set up. So I think from that point of view, it was disappointing. But at the same time, you have to understand that that's the way modern day football has gone, Sean. Nobody really wants to give an inch. Nobody wants to lose. Of course, as a supporter going into Tralee the last night, it was a packed Dawson Stack Park. I couldn't get over the crowd when I walked in. I was actually a little bit late. We go swimming here on a Saturday with the kids in Tralee, actually at a pool in there, and I just got a little bit held up getting to the ground. And I just couldn't believe the amount of people out at the turnstiles. Loads of Armagh people, in fairness to you, travelled very well. And of course, that led to the game being delayed by 10 or 15 minutes, I think, in the end, was it? Yeah. And everyone expected, there's a great buzz before the game. Austin Stack Park was full to the gills. And everyone was expecting a real humdinger of a game where both teams were going to go at each other. But that never transpired. And you can understand, too, in a way, Sean, maybe if Armagh and Kerry were both coming into the game unbeaten, and, had maybe their points on the board, and they didn't need the 2 points really to I suppose, go towards either staying up or maybe challenging for a league final place, then maybe the shackles would have been off a little bit. But there was a bit of pressure in the game because both teams really needed a win just to kind of take the pressure off in terms of the relegation battle. So you could understand maybe from Kieran McGeeney and Jack O'Connor's point of view that they were going to play a little bit more reserved football and a bit more cagey, but maybe we didn't expect that much. From a Kerry point of view, we got well beaten above in Castlebar, and, Jack spoke after about how the players really wanted to go up and prove a point on Saturday evening. They didn't want to be as open, so maybe that fed into the Kerry mentality as well. But yeah, look, from a spectacle, it wasn't great. But from a Kerry point of view, we got the result that we really, really needed. And I suppose from an Armagh point of view, it just puts a little bit of pressure on you now again to get the points to stay up. But I've no fear from watching you the last night, Sean, that you'll get those points. I've no fear at all,
Probably from an Armagh point of view, Sean, like, you're coming in against Kerry, who are coming off a big hammering. They're the All-Ireland champions. The Cliffords are back. Sean O'Shea's back. You're going down to Tralee. You need the points. Like, you can understand why Armagh maybe were a bit defensive and set up like that. But probably in terms of going to win the game, you're probably not going to win the game playing with one forward up. You needed.
No.
There wasn't really much of an attacking plan maybe from Armagh.
No, there wasn't. When the game finished, there was a couple of Armagh supporters behind me, two fellas, and one turned around to the other and said, we've only ourselves to blame that we didn't push on in the second half, especially when you went those 2 points up, Sean, early in the second half. Armagh were on top. They had the Kerry kick out cracked. They were playing, as you said, with more bodies up high up the field, and they really had Kerry under pressure. And I remember turning to a friend of mine saying, Kerry are in trouble here. I can't. It's going to be a difficult one to turn around here unless we can stem the tide a small bit. So that was definitely a time in the game where Armagh really could have gone after it. Watching the game back as well on RT after, I think, Eamon Fitzmaurice, in fairness to him, in his commentary alluded to the fact that, Rian O'Neill, when he plays close to the goal, he's much more effective. I mean, early in the game, he was kind of out the field and he was trying to get on ball over around the middle and over on the half forward line. Whereas when he went in, he caused Kerry problems. But again, he slowly started drifting out the field. He was just right in front of me there in the second half. I was over on the terrace side, and he played a lot of his football over on our wing there by the dugout side, and he wasn't very effective, really. Obviously, he kicked his frees, which were always very good by him, but I agree 100% with you. If Armagh had just maybe been a little bit more offensively minded, they could have got Kerry, especially in that third quarter. We spoke about it last week, about the third quarter for both teams, and Armagh had a very good third quarter, but they just it didn't reflect on the scoreboard, and it kept Kerry in the game. And in a tight game, if Armagh had pushed a 2-point lead into a 3-point lead or even a 4-point lead, that could have been the winning of the game there for them, so they'll be disappointed from that point of view. Yeah.
And Sean, I open up on social media after every game. People can send me in their requests of what they want to talk about on the podcast, and it seems every week that they want to talk about Armagh's the opposition kickouts and the fact that Armagh seem to be dropping off them. And I think I'll give a shout out to GA Statsman on Twitter and Instagram. He does all the stats, and I think Kerry won 14 of their 15 kickouts. So did you notice that? Was that an obvious tactic from Armagh, or what? What did you make of Armagh?
Very obvious from the start, Sean. I again, that friend of mine I was with at the game, I just turned to him, I think it was after the second or third Shane Ryan kick out, and I just said, look, Armagh are just giving us the kick out. They don't seem to have any interest at all in pressing up on us. And they just dropped their men back behind the halfway line. They allowed their half forwards to drop back into the pockets, and everyone just took a step backwards and basically invited Kerry on and tried to get them to break them down. Kerry, in fairness to Kerry, there was times when they probably lacked a bit of width, and they didn't have options out wide where they could maybe go down the lanes and go down the corridors. But when Kerry did have the guys out wide, and they did go down into the corners, they actually found the little gaps to open Armagh up. A few times in the first half, now jump out with me, say, Paul Murphy's point, where they got David Clifford down into the corner and he popped the ball in over Paul on the run. He got a score. They got Shawnee Shea into a nice little backdoor cut position. He got pulled down for a free, which was very nearly a penalty. It was just on the edge of the box. So there was instances where Kerry were patient, even though the home crowd were getting a little bit edgy with them. They wanted to kick the ball a little bit more. But Kerry were patient, and they did find the little gaps to get the scores, even though they were faced with a real blanket defence by Armagh. But yeah, the Armagh approach to the Kerry kick-out, I have no problem at all with a team dropping off a kick out if they feel that they want to set up that mass defence and they want to make it difficult. But I think particularly maybe after a score, now I understand in the first half maybe Armagh had they the small aid of a breeze. I know there wasn't much there, Sean, really, but they might have had the small. Yeah, it was kind of blowing down into the shed ends, we call it now, in the Stack Park. And I mean, they had the small aid of a breeze. And I thought that maybe a couple of times in the first half, when they got scores, maybe off a Rian O'Neill free, or Faulkner kicked a great score from full, he drove up the field and kicked a great score. I just thought there might have been a couple of times where McGeady might have shouted in, let's press it, let's go after it for a little bit. But no, they were very conservative. They dropped off again. They pushed all their men back, and they just gave Kerry the kick out, which, from a supporter's point of view, you're after kicking a score, you want to maybe go after the next kick out and maybe force Shane Ryan into a long one over on the middle. But no, they didn't. They just dropped off. So I think definitely that's probably something that maybe McGeaney will look at, and I can see how it would maybe be a little bit frustrating for the Armagh support. If you're in the ascendancy, why not go after it? What's the worst that could happen? If Shane Ryan does go long and Kerry win the kick out, you can always maybe get at least one or two guys back to help out the defence. You mightn't get caught. It's all about weighing up the options. But for our man not to go after it at all was a bit disappointing from their point of view, I would agree, yeah.
I think during the Mayo game, they done the same thing against Mayo, Sean. You could sort of understand it with Ruan and, we had no Shea floating about there, Jordan Flynn. Like, Mayo was physically bigger than Armagh and stronger because, as we know, Armagh are missing a lot of bodies around the middle of the field. But we spoke last week with David Moran gone, Dermot O'Connor injured, Joe O'Connor injured, that Kerry possibly didn't have their strongest midfield. And I know Jack Barry is well experienced at this stage. But O'Sullivan's only young Ockenbar was there as well with Ryan O'Neill. So it was maybe surprising that Armagh took such a defensive tactic against the Kerry kickout.
Yeah, it was an opportunity for the maybe to possibly go after it when, as you said quite rightly, Kerry are down a few of their probably first choice guys. Now, I thought the Kerry midfield actually did okay. They weren't put under the pressure from the kick out, and obviously they did pretty well from Rafferty's kick out. They did. Anytime Rafferty went long, Kerry were very competitive, whether it was clean catches or from the breaks, but certainly I think it was an opportunity the last night for Armagh to go after that Kerry midfield, and they didn't. So they probably look back at that and say, geez, if we had gone after it, not all the time, you don't have to go, full out all the time and press all the time. But it was definitely an opportunity to test that Kerry midfield if they are a little bit inexperienced. But they didn't, and Kerry stayed, even when Armagh had that good third quarter, Kerry stayed in it. They just chipped away, got their frees, got level, and then it was anybody's game really going down the stretch. And look, it took a really good score from Tony Brosnan and a fisted effort from Donald O'Sullivan to open up that little bit of breathing space. And then look, Armagh had to go looking for a goal, and even though they tried at the end, it never looked like they were going to get it. And Kerry got out by the skin of their teeth. So I definitely think for Kerry, it's a game that they will put in the bank and say, look, tough, hard, physical game, played at a very good pace, Sean. I don't know, do you agree or disagree with that? I thought the intensity was very good for a league match. I wouldn't quite say it was championship pace yet, but it was up there. Kerry will be happy that they ground out a good, hard win. And now will be disappointed, I think, that they didn't go after it when they had the opportunity. I
suppose, Sean, in terms of matchups, and we probably didn't spend much time last week talking about matchups because there was no other option for Armagh than Aidan Falker and David Clifford, but I was very wrong. Obviously, Barry McCambridge went back in and done that job. Falker come out on Sean O'Shea and Conor O'Neill, went on Paddy Clifford until he got an injury and Joe McElroy come in. But Armagh's matchups worked a treat. They held the three Kerry's forward, probably three of the best forwards in the country, to 1 point from play. So what did you make Armagh's matchups, and how impressed were you, particularly, I suppose, with Barry McCambridge?
Yeah, spot on. McCambridge, look, he had help. Let's not go away from that. He did have a lot of help. Anytime David got the ball, of course, McCambridge was there with him, but there was another couple of black and orange jerseys floating around as well. But certainly McCambridge, the minute he went in on David, they shook hands, and McCambridge let David know that he was in for a long day, and so it proved. Kept him scoreless from play, didn't he? And just a real good Tigers performance from McCambridge. Very impressed with him. Yes, O'Neill went off with a head injury early on, didn't he? He was over by the stand. I hope he's okay, because it was a bad bang. Obviously, I didn't see it in real time, but looking back on the TV,
I think it's reported now, Sean, it's actually his groin that is injured.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Because it looked like it was his head. Yeah, so that's good. That's good. Obviously, not that he's injured, but at least it's not his head. He was having a very good game on Paddy Clifford, and then it was Matt the Rye that took over there. And again, just basically pulling where O'Neill left, it took up where O'Neill left off and just stuck to Paddy. We all know Paddy's game, loves to get on the ball, loves to drive, great tackles. We saw very little of that. I know he picked a point all right in the first half, but that's because I think he just got away from O'Neill. Did Kerry turn over the ball, and Paddy happened to be inside around the edge of the D and kicked a score. And Aidan Falker did very well on Shawnee Shea, very well. Now, Shawnee looks to me like a guy who's still just getting back to match fitness. As we mentioned last week, he's been carrying that knee injury, and he still doesn't look to me like he's going at full pace. But that is not in any way taking away from Falker's performance. Very, very good. I have to say, on the other side, I was very impressed with O'Connor. I know he started on Rian O'Neill, but then Rian moved in. And I think, was it Jason Foley that might have been picking up, or was it Tom Sullivan, actually? Tom Sullivan might have gone on. But I think Kerry's best performer on the night was O'Connor, for me. When I heard coming into the stadium that he was starting instead of Pat Warren and going to wing back, I actually kind of thought that might work for him, because if he had gone into midfield, there would have been a big spotlight on him, and you would have the Kerry public might have been expecting this big performance from him in terms of catching ball over his head and driving forward. But when he went into wing back, actually, and the fact that the Armagh half forwards were dropping off, he was getting on a lot of ball, and his confidence grew as the game went on, and he was very good defensively. There was a couple of times where the ball went in over his head, and he turned, and he was there for the breaks off the full back line, and he got a good few interceptions. He got on a pile of ball, drove forward. Obviously, he's a huge man. He's a physical guy. And I think that game will bring him on an awful lot, Stefan, And Kerry need options in their backs, certainly around their half-back line. So I think he definitely put his hand up the last night. But definitely, that's one aspect of the Armagh performance, that when they headed back up the road Saturday night or Sunday, whenever they went back up, I know they went to watch Kieran Donaghy playing a basketball game. I saw a few pictures, but whenever they decided to go back up, I'm sure Kieran McGeeney would be very happy with those matchups and how they kept the Kerry, those three influential Kerry forwards very quiet from play anyway.
And Sean, obviously, we mentioned it last week. We knew that the winner was going to be hoping to push on at the top of the table, and the loser was going to be looking over their shoulder. Now, there's genuine fears for Armagh now with 3 games left that they could be dragged into a relegation fight here, and it's going to be so important on Saturday night.
Yeah, so I was trying to look at that yesterday afternoon at the table. So from a Kerry point of view, Kerry are now on 4, and they have Tyrone, Galway, and Roscommon left. Now, look, Tyrone are going poorly, but they'll welcome Kerry to Armagh on Sunday, and Kerry never get anything easy in Armagh, and certainly won't get anything easy next Sunday. But I mean, if Kerry were to get a win there, that would probably be Kerry safe enough, I would say. Then they would decide, okay, we're safe here. Do we want to push on and try and get to a league final? I'm not sure. Jack O'Connor gave an interview on RT after the game and kind of alluded to the fact that they didn't want to win the league this year. They just wanted to stay where, retain their status. So one more win should be enough, and I think Kerry will get that out of the 3 games they have left. Now, you'll have to help me out here, Sean, because I didn't get a chance to look at Armagh's remaining fixtures. I do know they have Donegal, obviously, on Saturday evening at home. Isn't that right?
We've Donegal at home, then Galway at home, then Tyrone away the last game. So would want to be safe by the time we're going to Omagh.
God, that could be tasty if there's 2 points rating on that, definitely. I might even go to that one myself. No, look, I would expect, and I know they got a draw the last day against Galway, and you can never write them off because they're a proud bunch, and they can be a good outfit on their day. But I would expect Armagh to beat Donegal Saturday evening at home, Sean, and that would put you on to 5 points. Then,
5,
is it?
yeah.
5, okay. One more should do you really then, and you've Galway at home. Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. Look, Galway are going well, and they're getting a few bodies back as well now from injuries. So by the time they come to you, they'll be in good nick, you would expect. So that should be a good game. And obviously, as we said, you don't want to be going to Omagh needing 2 points. So I think Armagh will probably get enough out of their 2 home games to be safe. From what I saw the other night, Sean, definitely. Defensively, you're very good. Can you get more up front? That's the big question. Will you score enough to beat the likes of Donegal and Galway? And if they can tweak a few things like that, I certainly think you'll have enough to stay in the division, which will probably, it's 2 down, isn't it?
2 down, Sean, yeah.
Like, you're probably right now at the moment, I think under the most pressure, you're probably looking at Tyrone and Donegal, would they be the two really that are under real pressure? But I was right in saying, Sean, anyway, that Kerry are different. Like I looked at the potential of Kerry getting to a league final, which may or may not happen. I don't think it will, but the league final is down for the 2nd of April.
Yeah.
And Kerry play their first round of the Munster Championship on the 22nd of April. So Kerry would have a nice break if they were to get to a league final, just hypothetically speaking. But I'm really certain that if an Ulster team were to get to the final, is the championship not starting a week later, a week after the league final or something like that?
Armagh, they're in the preliminary round, so they'd be out the next week, and then would have to play the first round the following week, so they would be out really 3 or 4 weeks in a row. So
yeah, I don't think Armagh are going to get to a league final anyway. But it's amazing how teams will look at these things and say, like Kerry, do Kerry want to really be getting to a league final? But they'd have a decent break. I think they play the winners of Tip and Clare, is it? I couldn't be 100% on that now. I think it's Tip and Clare. Is it Tip and Waterford? They would have a nice break leading into their Munster Championship. So a league final probably wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for them to get another game, particularly a national final in Croke Park. But I can't see it happening. But it's amazing how managers and teams will try and navigate that depending on when they're out in the championship. So you nearly could end up in the league final without wanting to be there at all. You know what I mean? So let's see. I still think I've said it from the word go. I said Mayo would win the league, and I'm not changing on that. I think they seem to me like a team who want to win the league. I think McStay wants to win the league and really kind of get the buy-in and as a new manager to win a trophy in your first year is always good as well. So they look like the clear favourites to win it at the moment, but who knows? We'll see.
I think the big thing for Armagh is that it's in their own hands. They have Donegal and Tyrone are below them, so Armagh have them to play and just have to beat them. And I hope Kerry can do us a favour this weekend in Omagh and keep Tyrone down and keep Armagh. Hopefully, if Armagh can live up to their end on Saturday, then.
Yes, yeah. Tyrone, look, you never get anything easy. As I said in Omagh, in fairness though, I think our record in the last few years hasn't been too bad. In terms of who's coming back for Kerry, I know there was a mention that Gavin White and Paul Ganey are both back in full training this week, or close enough to it, but I think the weekend might come a bit too soon for them, Sean, to be honest. So I think whatever Kerry have at the moment, they have, and they'll go to Omagh trying to get the 2 points, because whatever about doing Armagh favours, 2 points for Kerry on Sunday, and really the league could be put to bed. Then you're safe enough, and you can concentrate on pushing on your championship training, and your last 2 games are, I think you're at home to Roscommon and away to Galway. You can use them as championship preparation then, with the pressure being off of trying to get 2 points,
Well, John, hopefully it all works out this weekend and Armagh have a wee bit less of a sweat coming into the Galway game as they do this week. But
absolutely, yeah.
That game, Donegal on Saturday night in the Athletic Grounds, 7:30, and we'll be back on Thursday with another preview show. We'll be joined by Brendan Devaney, and we'll look ahead to that game. So, Sean, brilliant to have you on. Thanks for joining us and giving us your thoughts once again.
No problem. Before you go, Sean, you had a good night in Tralee, had you?
Brilliant night. And by all accounts, whoever was in Tralee and Clarny, I think everybody enjoyed it, and we want to play all our away games in Tralee from now on, I think, Sean.
Well, you're more than welcome again the next time you come down. You're more than welcome. I'm glad you had a good time. Well done.
Good man. Thanks, Sean. Cheers.
Thanks, Sean. Take care. Bye-bye.
Good luck.